Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dad Designer podcast. Today, I'm joined by Caleb White. Hey, Caleb, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Good to see you, man.
Thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about your design background and a bit about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the owner of Dreamlit Creative Company. We're based out of the Charlotte area here in North Carolina. Really, it came out of me and my partner both freelancing for a while, her much longer than me. She's at the top of the photography game and killing it. So she does all the photography, all of the realistic video photography, all that stuff. And then I get my hands dirty in the design side and really focus on taking care of the people we work with, making sure that people feel heard and seen, and really just telling their stories through design is really what we do. And then at home, we've got two little boys, both under the age of 5. So one is mine biologically. He's the almost 5-year-old. And then hers is almost 2, but we've been one family for a bit now, and it's wild, but in the best way.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so, work, family life are really intertwined in that you're both business partners and life partners.
Yeah, very much so. We just got off of Christmas break, right? And work doesn't stop at all. If anything, it got busier during that time, but both boys are home all day, and there were definitely days where one of us was working at the counter at any given time, and it was kind of like a game of tag, like, okay, you like knock out some emails, knock out this thing. And I'm at home right now and work from here a lot, but just try to balance it. It's really the goal in all of that is I never want the boys to feel like they are second priority, even if that means like I'm working and they're at home at the same time, right? But really focusing on either bringing them in some way to what I'm doing, especially with mine almost 5-year-old. He understands a little bit more of what's happening, and I just really try to bring him in small bite-sized ways, and so he's never like, oh, daddy's not here because he's at work. Like, work equals daddy not being here. I never want
Mhm.
those two to live hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah. And are either of the boys in pre-K, daycare, anything like that, or are they pretty much home all day?
So mine's in preschool, and so he's gone. Like, I get a pretty solid work day in during the week for the most part.
Hmm.
And then the almost 2-year-old, he's actually starting preschool soon, but he's at home. So, Katie, she with photography, it's she schedules her shoots around what works, and then, you know, there's a lot of post bedtime editing that happens, but we make it work. It's we might binge a TV show and like have a second screen while editing or finishing some designs and stuff like that. But we try to organize it as good as we can. But then, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to make it happen, right? And family's got to stay first priority within all that.
Yeah. And how long have you all been doing Dreamlit?
So we incorporated the LLC October of 23. And honestly, though, the first 3 months of that were like moving freelance style clients into more proper contracts, really getting the business solid in the foundation. So like to the world, we honestly launched about a year ago right now.
Nice.
So pretty
Nice.
fresh. Pretty
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. And overall, best decision, worst decision.
It's been incredible. Honestly, I feel really blessed. That might sound cliche, but it just worked out really well the way that. So we spoke a little bit, but I was working in coffee for almost a decade and was doing a lot of the marketing design stuff for the company I was working with. And when I left that company, they actually became and still are a client of ours, and they're right here in the area. Great relationship. So honestly, I always think like that's a lucky grab to be able to pursue what was a side hustle at one point, really dive into it full bore, but also not be starting from zero, right? And it's been incredible. The relationships that we've made over the past year, even just in this first year, have been second to none. It's I really feel like we know our clients in a way that if you strip the business down, like they could be friends, you know? And we just really try to treat people well and not let it simply be a transaction, even if that's just a small conversation.
And are a lot of the clients outside of that coffee one, are they referrals? Are they local? Like, how did you find your total customer base in the last year?
Yeah, that's a good question. About 50-50 referrals versus LinkedIn.
Mm,
I try to be really active on LinkedIn and thoughtfully messaging people, reaching out, which, it can feel a little sticky sometimes, right? When you're like cold messaging people, you're like, "Hey, I love your company. Somehow I found your company, but also like let's do branding and design work together." They're like, "Well, if you saw me, then whatever I'm doing is working." You know what I mean? But honestly, we've worked with a handful of clients from just cold LinkedIn messaging, and they're some of the greatest people, you know? But the other side is referrals. Fortunately, the thing I was scared of when first starting out was that we would get in a referral loop,
mm.
meaning like we were doing stuff for all kinds of different companies when it was just freelance, right? But I was kind of afraid, like, okay, we're going to do some random company that we're not honestly not interested in the niche, and then they're going to be the best referral ever, and that's all we're ever going to do again. But fortunately, that hasn't been true. Like, we've been able to, offer high value to a variety of clients and just get to tell people stories.
That's cool. It does look like you've done a bit in the food service hospitality space. You know, you had the coffee, but then Run the Food looks like a super rad client of yours. Tell us a little bit about how that relationship came to be and a bit about that project.
Yeah, so Run the Food is a project with actually one of my longest time friends. His name's Darnell Bennett. He's been an executive chef for 15, 20 years. We worked together in a restaurant when I was like 14, 15, one of my first jobs. And Run the Food's a collaboration between the two of us. And he, when I started the company, we were talking and just catching up, and he was sharing with me that one of the things he was really looking to do at this stage in his life, after being in the industry for 20, 30 years, was to really start giving back. The restaurant industry, especially, is one that's just riddled with burnout and addiction and, a terrible work life balance for a lot of people in that industry, and especially for the chefs who are really trying to make a name for themselves. So, Run the Food, it's a collaboration in the sense that we're offering not only consulting and mentorship to chefs and restaurant owners, but within the consulting packages that he's offering, not only have we branded Run the Food as like it's one of the most fun projects, like killer knees skate hip hop themed, which is total like I'm so into that. It's like everything I love, all in a brand. But we've branded it that way, but also within his consulting packages there, we're extending the reach into offering what we do to the chefs that he's working with as kind of an all-inclusive package. So we've actually got an event coming up, like we call it a chef showcase event. So we've got one coming up in a few weeks, and just bringing people together in the Charlotte community to enjoy good food and promote chefs who are really what we would say are on the culinary come up. So on the they're newer in the industry, but they're figuring out how to build that personal brand or restaurant for themselves.
And is that where another one that you had mentioned is a CPG ice cream brand, Alaka Treats? Is that a connection through Run the Food, or was that something like separate?
No, so that's a good old LinkedIn cold email right there.
Nice. No
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Dude, I
So
don't want you to give away all your secrets, but you gotta share your tactics. That's awesome.
yeah, it's I feel like on the cold emailing side, it's like if you're from the same state, it just really helps. For there's like that little bit of familiarity, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But no, so Elika, so I reached out to her and originally no message back for a little while, but come to find out, I basically reached out and was like, hey, I think you got something good. Your product seems incredible. Would love to help you really elevate your brand to the next level, kind of go from the farmer's market to the grocery store to the retail shelves, right? So come to find out, she had been working with some other company to kind of reinvent her brand from, from literally what she started with in a farmer's market. They, I don't really know all the details, nor should I, but our first discovery call was so much fun because it was like an hour of her telling me that she's very frustrated with the company that she worked with. And for some, like, she was like, for some reason, I feel like this might work. Like, this project, basically what they've done is like 50% done, and I need to bring it to fruition. And like, there's no logo, nothing's cohesive. Their verbal identity was already pretty great, but the visuals weren't there, right? So she definitely took a risk on us, quite honestly. Like she put a lot of trust in us to make that happen. And because she'd been burned, I guess. And really just through listening, really, asking the question behind the question, right? Like color palettes, fonts, why did you send these images in the mood board? But digging one, especially with that project, just asking questions to dig one layer deeper than might feel natural. We came out of that initial logo project and she was thrilled. Every time I'm sending a presentation, I was so nervous because I was like, I don't want to be the next company that did terrible or whatever, But that was in the fall, and then we've done another project she has these pods, as she calls them, and they're basically grab and go freezers that she sets up at museums, luxury hotels, that sort of thing. So we just did like vinyl wraps and artwork for the walls around it and everything. So she's wonderful, and it's been a great partnership there so far as well.
yeah. That's cool. How much of the work you did with her, or really any of your clients, does like the combination of having a designer and a photographer that work so well together? How does that help you win business as well, or does it just help you elevate it to kind of like that next tier of like it's gonna matter what photos we're using to tell the brand story, right? Yeah, what does that mix look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. My gut reaction, unless it seems like a unique situation, I always try to start the relationship with something small. So whether that be a logo project, an illustration project, or just a photo shoot, and then using their existing brand assets, right? Just to establish the relationship. But what we found is really it seems kind of obvious, but the biggest benefit to having that collaboration is when we do the initial branding, right? And then where's that branding going to go? It's going to go on their website and probably on social media. And so being able to look at them and be like, hey, here are all your logo assets, for example. Here's a whole suite of assets, but you don't want to just put these out on a white background. They're not going to do anything. Let's make it move. Let's get some killer photography. I'll go to a photo shoot and like do B-roll footage behind her while she's doing the stuff. And to answer your question, like I really think it does add to the relationship in a sense that we take care of clients in a way that they don't feel like they have to go somewhere else or that something's lacking at the end of the day. And that's, there's a huge benefit to that because you want to take care of people across the board if you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I just feel like in this era of everyone has a camera, there's all these free stock photo sites. To have custom brand photography is such a massive advantage
Mm.
for a brand. So I didn't, before we got on this call, I didn't really um, recognize that that was like a big part of it, but like that makes so much sense. And it's really cool that you guys offer that too.
It's huge. And Katie, my partner, she's been in it a long time and she's literally traveled the world doing photography and like location scouting for different companies and things like that. And it makes such a huge difference, especially, when like we do a lot of web design. We don't really market that, but everybody needs a website at some point. And so we usually help out with that side of things too. And to be able to design a website and then go shoot exactly to the way the website is designed instead of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, like it's been a huge game changer in
Yeah,
that regard.
that's cool. Another thing that we talked about, and we got just like right into family life and your design life that I wanted to talk about is you found out about the podcast from a former guest, Casey Clark, who you were telling me before we hit record, you met when you worked in the coffee industry and he helped illustrate a book that you wrote. What's the story there?
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, I'll be as brief as possible in the story. So, the easiest way to say it is I grew up very different than in terms of belief system than maybe I now live, right? And my dad and I are best friends. Like he's one of the closest people in my entire life, but we see the world very differently. And my mom as well. I think I was 20, about a decade ago, probably. I started writing kind of a middle grade fiction novel as a way to explore the way that I view the world in a way that strips out all the meaning from like any religious terms, any of the, stories we grow up hearing, and put it in a fictional world and like explored those concepts on a spiritual level, right? And all that to say, so I had this book. Originally, I just like had this huge 300-page Google Doc. I edited it down to like 150, but I did that one, and then that was one for my dad that I illustrated very poorly because I didn't know a thing about actually bringing print into digital. And at that time, I wasn't in the design industry at all. But for the second one, I wrote for my mom, and I was like, I actually want to outsource the illustration on this one and work with somebody who's just killing it. And Casey ended up doing it. He probably cut me a really good deal, honestly. He probably shouldn't have done it for what he did, but he, yeah, man, he's top tier human. But yeah, there's two books out there on Amazon somewhere, and you can
Nice.
find them if you look me up, I guess.
Do you feel like that experience helped catapult you into wanting to do design a little bit more?
Absolutely. That experience, so around that time, it was probably 2017, 2018, and my COVID job actually was working because obviously coffee shops shut down, so I was out of a job for a while. My COVID job, so to speak, was selling digital ads to like local companies. It was a terrible job, but the like lots of cold calling just constantly. But within that job, I got to see the other side of the company I was working with. And the other side of that was the graphic design department. And so I started paying attention, started learning a little bit, started looking at the moves they were making and why to make really effective design work for these ads. And coming out of COVID, I mean, I started freelancing pretty directly out of COVID. And that was a huge influence. Those two experiences really propelled me to be like, okay, I have the natural skill set of drawing and like the illustration side as far as pen to paper. Got it. Um, just curated that basically my whole life. But we need to elevate to the professional level now and really start understanding what makes good design great and how to tell better stories for companies.
Yeah. It seems like it's given you now a trajectory that gives you the opportunity to spend more time with the boys, spend more time with your partner, kind of instill in them like this work ethic. Yeah, it's just really cool that that all has like woven together.
Yeah, it has the biggest part of me leaving and starting Dreamlit to begin with was building something for my son. And this is before we were a blended family, but
Mm,
um really just looking at him being like, I never want you to feel like I didn't do everything I could to set you up for the best opportunities you could possibly have. And not that there's anything wrong with a 9 to 5, but like the coffee industry is not the money of like the private equity industry. They're a very different breed, right? The building something that can stand the test of time, and at the end of the day, even if that just means that we get to help other companies launch into their future, then we've done a good thing. And for him to see that right now, that looks like me showing him when I'm designing the new menus for the coffee shop, and then like taking him to the coffee shop and be like, hey, remember that? Or like the t-shirts or something like that, like him seeing that in real life. But as the boys grow up, it really is to instill in them that like we're doing something and building something for ourselves, but the thing we're building is actually built to directly help other people pursue their vision as well.
yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, we are at that point. Caleb shared with me beforehand that he's listened to every episode except maybe two, and so he knows the drill where we get to the end of the show, and I ask these two questions, which always get to the heart of the parent, which is what has been your greatest parenting success, and then what has been your greatest parenting failure or learning.
Which one you want first?
It's up to you. A lot of times people have like a visceral reaction to one or the other, or they have an immediate idea. So I mean, they're already harder questions than the rest of them to begin with. I'll let you pick.
Yeah, we'll go failure first. Gosh, well, you have parenting failures every day, right? So this might seem trivial, and it's very recent actually, but it's kind of got a bigger point behind it. So over Thanksgiving, my little boy's preschool had like a feast for after school. I had gotten the email about the feast and like seen it, and to be honest, I read through it very quickly and was like, "Oh, okay, cool. We'll make sure he's dressed up and send him in." Well, so we did that, right? Sent him off to school. He looked very nice, and he did the feast thing. And that weekend, he comes back and he was like, "Daddy, why didn't you come to my feast?" I was like, "Oh God, I did not like shit. I didn't know I was supposed to be at the feast." And he was like, "Come to find out, man, basically all the other parents were at the feast." So he, I apologize so much. He was so upset. And basically he got like adopted by one of our family friends for the feast. But like I was like the only one who wasn't there. At least like one mom or dad. And he was like, "Daddy, why didn't those words out of a
Yeah,
4-year-old's mouth are absolutely heartbreaking." So it's not that my biggest parenting failure is not going to an after school meal, but I thought a lot about that. And I feel those things really deeply. And the thing that hit me, I was like, my biggest failure is any of those moments where I'm in too much of a rush to really pay attention to the details, because those details might actually be very important to him, you know? And missing the details that are important to him, or if there's anything that makes parenting worthwhile, it's being able to pay attention to your kids. So that was go to the Thanksgiving feast. That's my advice.
yeah, yeah. And on the
Oh,
success side?
yeah, honestly, kind of on that same note, something I read right around the time he was born, and one of the things, long book, but one of the things that stood out to me was that if you can take a walk with a toddler and be present, then you are grounded in the moment. And like
Mm,
they're being grounded in the present moment pays dividends in so many ways. And so all that to say, I really tried hard on that. I can be so all over the place, especially when it comes to trying to manage like crazy running around children. For the last biggest success as a parent, for the last 3 months that me and him lived just us, I started really focusing on learning how to take walks.
mm,
And it's not just about taking the walk. It's every night after dinner, and it's a routine now. Like we still do it even though it's when it's not 20 degrees outside, but being able to go outside for 30 minutes and just walk down the sidewalk, listen to what he's saying, talk to him, pay attention to what he's paying attention to, like the things that kids find on the sidewalk that me and you would never see. They just have such an acute awareness for life, and learning how to take a walk with him is just it's strengthened not only our relationship but has really brought me into being a more present father, partner, business person, all of that. And it gets plus sides. Like the other day, the pond iced over, so we took a walk and threw rocks at the pond for like an hour. But it comes with perks too.
yeah, yeah. I love that. It's kind of two sides of the same coin of paying very close attention and on the flip side, missing some of the details and like how both of those choices, both of those decisions have downstream effects, which, yeah, is so hard to remember in the moment.
It is. It's and just paying attention to people in general. I think on the fatherhood side and the designer side, not to be too cliche about it, paying attention and really listening to what's important to people, it sets you up for success in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for one, sharing that, and two, coming on and sharing a bit about your family and design life. If folks wanted to find you online, where can they do that?
Yeah, so it's our website and Instagram handle are both Dreamlit, so dreamlit.co, dreamlit.co. And then that's our LinkedIn too, but I do most of this stuff from personal. So I think it's Caleb White one, but if you look up Caleb White Dreamlit, it'll pop up somewhere.
Nice.
But would definitely, if people are interested, would love to connect on LinkedIn and especially like on Instagram. Those super responsive and love having one less cold email to send.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm still going to maybe after pick your brain on those cold emails
Yeah,
because
man.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love the tactic. But yeah, really appreciate it and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.